Good morning. It's Sunday, May 2nd. And I don't know what all this big ruckus is with respect to the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Many Americans hold more than one job to make ends meet. That's not an unusual thing that goes on in this country. So, Clarence Thomas, in my mind, is working for Harlan Crow. And there's no thing that prevents a Supreme Court justice from taking side jobs. So I don't know why everybody is upset by the fact that Clarence Thomas is working for Harlan Crow. If you look at the Supreme Court justices, Sotomayer is writing a book, and she's going to get paid for writing that book. And there are many other jobs that Supreme Court justices do on the side, and they get paid for those things. So why is everybody so upset about the work that Clarence Thomas is doing for Harlan Crow? It's not illegal. It's not illegal. So what? His big mistake is that he didn't report the fact that he had this second job. It's an oversight. You know, the man is getting on in years. He can't do everything absolutely correctly. So I think we're wasting a lot of our time worrying about what Justice Thomas is doing, right? I mean, what's wrong if Harlan Crow paid tuition for Justice Thomas's grandnephew to go to a private school? Is that a terrible thing? The justices don't make enough money, probably. I know, $178,000 a year is not really a hell of a lot of money to make if you're a Supreme Court justice. Maybe they should be paid more money and then they wouldn't have to take these side jobs. That would be a wonderful thing. Justices had enough money so they didn't have to take side jobs, I'm sure that all of them have taken side jobs from time to time. You gotta squeeze through certain situations. Yeah, I know that the other guy, what's his name? Neil Gorsuch, him. He sold a piece of property to some law firm, some big-time lawyer that appears before the Supreme Court all the time. And he didn't report that money. And look, if he has property and he wheels and deals in real estate, what's wrong with that? That's his second job. He's got to make a few bucks extra too. So what if the guy presents cases in front of the Supreme Court? Does that make Neil Gorsuch such a bad guy? I don't think so. Neil Gorsuch wasn't appointed to court because he was a bad guy. He's got to be a fine, upstanding citizen. So I don't know what we're making such a big deal out of Thomas's situation and Gorsuch's situation. And soon they'll start picking on Chief Justice Roberts or something because he's making a few bucks on the side. Maybe they're all making a few bucks on the side, And what's wrong with that? This is a free country. People are allowed to make a decent living, right? And maybe Supreme Court justices are not paid enough money. Maybe we should consider that, And so what if Ginny Thomas runs around and is an extreme right-wing person who still to this day believes that President Trump won the election in 2020 and takes money? She takes lots of money from causes, far-right causes, Is that a crime? Should Justice Thomas be on the hook for her making a good living? Listen, he's only making $178,000 a year. Somebody has to pay the bills. So Ginny Thomas is taking all that on herself. I think that's fine. I think it's okay for her to do all these wonderful things for the far-right people. And she should be well compensated for that because, they have an image. The Supreme Court justices have an image that they have to maintain. And look, if Thomas is going to go on all these fancy trips with Harlan Crow, he has to dress the part. He can't be running around here in shorts and dungarees, He's got to have clothing and everything. That costs money. So let's look at Ginny Thomas is making all of this money for these right-wing causes to keep her husband looking solid, looking like the Supreme Court justice that he should be. So you got to consider all these things before you make a big ruckus out of it. Make it seem like it's a big crime to get money from people who happen to be politically motivated and loaded, right? You know, I don't blame the Supreme Court justices for hanging out with people who are multi-billionaires. It's perfectly okay. This is our American society, capitalism at the best. So what's wrong with the Supreme Court justices having a few side jobs and making a few extra dollars? And because they're a little bit absent-minded and they didn't report all of their financial stuff properly, is that reason to get so upset and carry on about it? I don't think so. I mean, when the founders of the Constitution put all of this stuff together, with the ethics clauses and everything else, they didn't see any reason to put a leash on the Supreme Court, because you have to let those people run amok, because they are the backbone of our legal institution. And they can't be held to other standards, you know. So it's okay for them to have second jobs and make a few bucks here and there to maintain their status and to look good in front of the world, you know. We can't have them walking around in shabby clothing and things like that. Oh, look, if they shop in some fancy high-class stores, I don't know if that's the right way to be spending their money. Maybe they should be a little bit conscious of the fact that their image is important. But listen, I don't think it's such a terrible thing to have your second job. I worked my whole life. I had 2 jobs, you know. I had a beautiful job in a wonderful business, and then I taught for 26 years at the local community college. Is that a crime to have 2 jobs? No, it's perfectly okay, I think. So, you know, let's not be so hard on these Supreme Court justices. Haven't we got better things to do right now? Country's falling apart on a lot of other ways. Let them live their lives. Let them make these shitty decisions. It's perfectly okay. We shouldn't be holding them to a different standard. If they need to make an extra buck here and there, I'm in favor of that. Let them make it as long as it's an honest buck, you know. They're not stealing, so what's the big deal? I leave you with that crazy thought this morning. What's the big deal? Have a great day. Bye.